Friends, today's NRI Samay program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support.
A very warm welcome to all our listeners on Samay. Today we have an interesting program. It is about, I would say, it's a very unique idea, a very innovative idea, and in some ways it's also quite revolutionary. I'm talking about the Baltimore note. It's actually a local currency of Baltimore, and they have been using this for a little over 2 years now. And was introduced or was created in order to strengthen the local economy. So today we have with us Jeff, who is one of the board of directors for the Baltimore Green Currency Association, and he's going to explain us why the BNote was introduced and the history behind it and how it's faring after 2 years or so. So, Jeff, very warm welcome to NRI Samay, and thank you for being on our show today.
Yeah, hey, thanks, sir. It's good to be here.
Thank you. So, as I understand, I've been reading about BNote a little bit, and I was quite intrigued to know that it was introduced after the financial meltdown happened.
Yeah.
Now, so what was the germination of this idea? Like, how did this idea come about that we have to introduce a local currency in order to protect your local economies? I mean, it's not like an everyday idea, right?
Sure. Well, it's kind of coming back into vogue now. I've been watching the economy collapse and the banks have so much trouble, and at the same time, people being taken advantage of constantly by corporations. And it just seemed to be getting worse and worse and more extractive of value from our local communities. I didn't really know what to do about it. I was learning more about money itself because people aren't really taught in school about what money is. So I was sort of looking into, well, what is the foundation of the financial system and why is it so shaky? And as I uncovered more information, I was getting very concerned about the way things are set up, the system as it is. I got introduced to the idea of local currency by Michael Rigby. It was someone who came to Baltimore. He had been working for Results in D.C., doing some lobbying on microfinance issues. And when he came to Baltimore and started talking about local currency, I didn't really know what he was talking about. But as we talked more about it, it sort of all gelled. It dawned on me that there was a way to take back our power in this economy and not give ourselves completely 100% to this dollar-based extractive system that's been constructed around us and not for our benefit. So we continued to have conversations into the spring of 2010 and gathered some friends, gathered people who were involved in other groups that we were involved in, and encouraged them to volunteer with us to get this thing off the ground. And we got it off the ground pretty quickly. It took 1 year from the very beginning of our planning to launching a fully formed local currency system in the spring of 2011.
I see. And how was this received when you sort of went about talking about the local currency? Did people relate to this? Were they open to sort of adopting this new currency?
We really got a range of responses. We were doing a lot of canvassing of businesses going into the spring because this was the way we were going to launch the system, get a critical mass of local businesses on board that provided all kinds of services. And as we went around, some of the business owners were immediately receptive. They saw our plan for the note. We didn't really have the design yet, but they would see our flyers and learn a little more about local currency and think, well, we really need this. And with some others, it was it was a little more of a hurdle. They needed more information. They wanted to know the dynamics of the system. And luckily there were a few, probably more than a few at the time, but a few local currency systems in existence that we were studying to try to pull the strongest dynamics from, say, the Lewis pound in England, the Brixton pound in London, Berkshires up in the Berkshires in Massachusetts, the Ithaca hours that are up in Ithaca, New York, and try to look at all these other existing local currency systems at the time in 2010 and see what we thought might be able to be put together for Baltimore as a very sustainable, strong local currency.
I see. So now it's been a little over 2 years since this has been up and running?
Yeah, actually 3.5 now. It's surprising to see the number 3 now.
I see.
So spring of 2011 we launched, and we launched with 55 businesses already participating.
Mm-hmm.
We put about 2,600, 2,800 BNotes into circulation that first weekend, and then we just continued to canvass and get new businesses. We hit 100 that year. We hit 200 businesses after we had been in circulation for 2 years, and now we've got just over 200. And at a little bit of a plateau as far as business participation, but we're ramping up a little bit now.
I see. Now, how exactly does this strengthen the local economy, Jeff? Can you take maybe a simple example and then sort of explain to us so that our listeners can also understand what do we mean when we say the local currency is to strengthen the local economy?
Sure, absolutely. So everybody is probably aware that there are buy local programs that go on, people forming organizations trying to encourage residents to spend more of their money with small independent businesses. And there's a very good reason behind this. It's been shown that small local businesses spend 3 times as much of their income in their community and with other small local businesses. So when you spend $1 at a large corporate chain, let's say you go to Starbucks and you spend $1, on average, corporations are sending 85% of that money out of the community. They're sending it back to the central office. They're rewarding shareholders. They're paying executive bonuses. They are expanding, and not in your area necessarily. They're certainly not putting much of that dollar to work in your community or spending it with other local businesses. When you spend that same dollar at a local coffee shop, 3 times as much of the dollar, approximately 45 cents, goes right back into the local economy. It pays other local suppliers. It pays for local services. It's going to local nonprofits and organizations. Local small business owners are just more community-minded because they are operating for the benefit of the community and not a franchise owner in some faceless, huge corporation. So that's the first benefit. We get 3 times as much of the money flowing back into the community. And you can see that over time, we're all creating value with what we do. We work, bringing in paychecks, we're spending our money. If we spent that much more of our money with small local businesses, over time, more and more of it stays in the community for longer. You get this very powerful wealth-building effect over time. So that, for instance, in Baltimore, there was a discussion about closing recreation centers for the youth. We wouldn't have to be discussing closing rec centers. We'd have more than enough money circulating and in Baltimore to do what we need if everybody were spending money with local businesses.
I see.
There was actually a really good study done by BALI, which is the Business Alliance for Living Local Economies. It studied localization trends. And they studied Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is smaller than Baltimore, but they found that just a 10% shift in people's buying habits from corporate chains to small independent businesses would create thousands of jobs and literally hundreds of millions of dollars in additional economic activity. This is just with a 10% additional shift of people's buying habits towards small business. That's how powerful this can be. And that's in a city that's smaller than Baltimore. So this really does have a very profound effect in us taking back the economy. Local currency just strengthens this. That's just with spending dollars locally. With local currency, people are actively looking to support local businesses. You're getting local businesses to find other local businesses to patronize and create very resilient local supply chains.
Right. Now, you mentioned that, the people are going to spend the money at the local stores as opposed to the big franchisee. Now, did you have any sort of resistance or any pushback from these big companies or big stores that were out there in Baltimore?
No, we've been so small comparatively in size that there's really no pushback. The corporations don't pay us any mind. The big banks aren't interested. We would love to partner with a small local bank or a credit union to make it even stronger. But we really did this as a grassroots citizen initiative. We didn't reach out to the city to start this. We didn't contact the Chamber of Commerce. We didn't get in touch with any, official city organizations, but we did reach out to community councils. We reached out to local community business organizations, and of course the businesses themselves and the residents. We tabled at a lot of events. We just did a lot of canvassing, and this was truly a volunteer effort, a citizen effort.
I see. That's interesting. I thought that you were working with at least some local banks. So is it fair to say that the people, if they want to start or buying the BNotes, they come to your organization, quote unquote, and then they buy these BNotes and then start using them? Is that as simple as that?
Sort of, yeah. We get out tabling, and we have money exchange right there when we're out tabling, and also we have 215 to 220 active businesses right now. Of those businesses, 10 of them are running money exchange right there in their place of business. So they've offered to us to hold BNotes and to be available in the community for people to just come into their business and exchange, say, $20 for 22 BNotes. And what we call a cambio, we sort of adopted the European term for money exchange. And so we have 10 cambios out of the 200-some businesses. People can just go into any of those businesses and get BNotes right there.
I see. So then what's the incentive? So let's say, there are other local businesses and they would want to start using the BNotes. Do you offer any incentives for them, or the fact that they understand it will help their business grow locally, they just automatically switch to using BNotes?
Yeah, that's exactly it. They see the power in local promotion, in the marketing that we can give them. We put them into our business directories. And really, when we have hundreds or thousands of people out there with BNotes in their pocket, in their wallet, they're looking for a place to spend them. So they're going to be looking at our directory. And eventually we hope to have a mobile app that people can have on their phones and just call it up, say, where are the businesses right near me that take BNotes? And, if they're looking for coffee, they'll go to the nearest coffee shop that takes BNotes.
I see. And do you also collect any taxes or does it work exactly like how you would pay using dollars? You're just paying using BNotes, and tax is also included in it.
Yes, that's the beauty of the system, is that we have 1 BNote bills and 5 BNote bills, and in trade they're exactly like $1 and $5 bills. So people they'll exchange for every $10, they get 11 BNotes that they can spend like $11. So built into the exchange rate, they get a 10% bump. But then in trade, it makes it really easy for the businesses to just take them in. They pay taxes on the full amount of their revenue in dollars, the dollars and BNotes that they've taken in equivalent. And it's really not a problem for them, because they might get BNotes for 1%, maybe 2% of their revenue, and using dollars to pay the tax is just not an issue.
I see. Now, do you also plan to scale these activities going forward in the near future?
Sure. We're always recruiting for new businesses. We're looking forward to printing 10 and 20 BNote bills hopefully next spring. So we're going to mount another fundraiser. We did raise the initial sum to print the first series on Kickstarter back in 2011.
I
so
see.
Our administrative costs to run this effort have been very, very small. It was only a few $100s to kick it off the ground. And then we've gotten a few grants from very generous local grant makers, the Able Foundation, Ralph's Family Foundation, Research Associates Foundation, and that has helped immeasurably, as has becoming a program of Fusion Partnerships, which Fusion Partnerships in Baltimore is a collection of 40 to 50 small social justice nonprofit organizations, and they are acting as our fiscal sponsors. So we can receive donations to the Baltimore BNote, and people can get a tax deduction for that because they're really contributing to Fusion Partnerships, which has 501c3 designation.
I see. And how much did you raise as part of the initial Kickstarter back when you were floating this idea?
Yeah, it was about $8,000 that we raised in total, and that got us through printing the first series and into the kickoff in the first year.
I see. So is it almost, so you said it's been 3.5 years now. How confident are you that, I wouldn't say we will have another financial meltdown or anything, touch wood, no more of that nature, but if ever those kind of things happen, how confident are you that the system that you sort of have introduced by introducing the local currency, the community itself will be able to protect from the influence of this financial turmoil?
Yeah, that's a big question, and that is something that's been on our minds from the very beginning, is how can we ultimately scale up to dynamics that will increase the resilience of the local business supply chains and increase the sustainability of these networks, these business networks. So I can't say that we would be able to have a macro effect yet, because the dollar trade in Baltimore is in the billions. It's huge, and we are very small. We might have exchanged 35,000, 40,000 BNotes in so far, but with 200 businesses, if we ramp up, if we get 300, 400, 500 businesses and can do a substantial percent of local Baltimore business in BNotes that doesn't have to be done in dollars, it can start to have a really positive effect. And not just economically, it's really for resilience. We get local cafes buying from local urban farms. We get those urban farms buying from, say, local hardware stores or getting compost from local composters. And those places continuing to pass it along. You can see how it becomes this resilient local business chain that doesn't require as much outside input. Really, it's an effort to produce whatever we can here in Baltimore as efficiently as we can, but tie it together so that there won't be the kind of economic disruption to the supply chains of things that people get every day.
Friends, NRI Samay is a nonprofit independent alternate media from Los Angeles, USA, which brings positive stories from grassroots activists from all corners of India and across the world. NRI Samay does not rely on corporate funding, and our shows are commercial free. We only rely on your donations. Corporate funded media is driven by the TRP rating, and profits are blurring the distinction between news and entertainment. Why do our news channels talk so much about cricket, movies, accidents, popular figures' personal lives, babies of heroines, gossips, etc., while they should be covering the struggles of people, inequality in our society, rural issues, and border security issues? Why did our media raise some corruption crusaders to the sky on one day and shut them off completely when graft charges were raised on those corporate sponsors? Media relies so much on the corporate funding and government blessings that they cannot report independently. NRI Samay is different. We don't accept funds from any corporations, and hence our shows are commercial free. We completely rely on donations from you. Please consider donating to NRI Samay, and please go to nrisamay.com and donate generously. This is the only way together that we can continue NRI Samay. All donations are kept transparent on nrsamay.com. And if you have any questions, please write to nrsamay@gmail.com.
And you also mentioned that there were other currencies that you had followed in Europe, London, and even in New York or Massachusetts. How are those currencies doing now?
As far as I know, they are still going. Berkshire's is still thriving. It is operated in it's a collection of small communities in the Berkshires. So collectively, they don't quite have the population Baltimore does, but it's been one of the most successful currencies in that they have, I'd say about 150,000 Berkshires circulate at any given time, and something like 400 businesses participating. So it just becomes a resilient and sustainable part of the local business fabric of the local community. Ithaca hours, I believe they're down from their peak a bit, but they're still operating, and I believe there are new efforts in Ithaca to try to get an additional system launched up there. And we as far as the BNote has gone, we have not seen businesses dropping out of the system very much. Businesses will leave for other reasons. Either the business closes down, sadly, or the owners move out of state or take the business to another area. We've seen that much more than businesses simply stopping accepting BNotes. We've had a handful of them, possibly not even a handful, in the last 3.5 years, maybe 3 or 4. But it's much more likely that the business, just through regular economic cycle, either moves or closes, changes its type of business, that kind of thing.
I see.
To compensate for that, we keep canvassing. We get new businesses on board.
And do you see, if the BNotes are adopted by the local banks, it would add more weightage to this currency, and it in turn would get in more businesses to adopt the BNotes? Do you see that happening?
Yeah, it's not happening, but there's no reason that a local bank or a local credit union couldn't take deposits in BNotes. They would just need a small separate part of their system to track those BNote accounts in dollar equivalent amounts. And we would love for that to happen. Even if it doesn't, we're going to work toward getting other systems implemented, like an electronic BNote system where we can have BNote-denominated accounts equivalent to dollars that businesses can just zap to each other through an electronic pay-by-text system.
I see. Now, you almost, when we started off talking about the BNote, you said, a bunch of you started this nonprofit organization, and through which you just floated the idea, then you introduced the currency. Now, I was kind of surprised when you said that, because I was under the impression that for something like this, you would need to have an approval from, the local state authorities, or I don't know if you have to go all the way to the Fed, but at least I would imagine the local state or some level of approval, because it's almost like you're running a parallel economy.
Well, right, exactly. And really there are no laws against starting a currency. You can't counterfeit dollars. You can't make something that's called a U.S. dollar, or you can't say that it's legal tender, because it takes an act of Congress to make legal tender. But money, at its very essence, is a belief system. And if you get people believing in their city and believing in their city's or community's local currency, that's really all you need. You need people coming together for the betterment of their community or for the betterment of their city and deciding that they're going to use an alternate system. We really do see it as not fighting the dollar. The dollar is this huge debt-based, morass that's been created around us. We've really envisioned the BNote as this little point of light outside that system, and we're sort of waving at everybody, trying to get as much energy and time and commitment to this system drawn off of the large economy as possible, to grow it as fast as possible and create these positive benefits and these positive dynamics.
Mm-hmm. And did you see the BNote idea being carried out to other states and other cities? Have anyone outside of Baltimore or even the other states reached out to you guys on exploring this?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had dozens of people call us. I've spent time on the phone with people from all over the country and even outside the country, explaining how we did it, explaining the dynamics, sort of helping them develop their own ideas for a local currency that will work in their area. One of our directors just moved back to Omaha, and as he was moving back to Omaha, someone got in touch with us through our email address from North Omaha and was starting a local currency very much like the BNote right there. And so I had them reach out to him now that he's back in their city. But there are hundreds and hundreds of local currencies all over the country. And I do want to mention that they're not just dollar-based currencies. There are time banks where people provide an hour of time and then can get an hour of time. So you do maybe an hour of PC service and get an hour of landscaping. And these are very powerful methods of bartering or value creation that even go beyond paper currency.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting thing that you mentioned, the time banks. That's also a very unique and innovative idea, I thought. Did you not think about that as an option when you were toying with this idea?
Yeah, we definitely considered it. And the more I thought about the different systems we could create, I really felt it was important to start with the small local businesses. They're kind of the economic backbone of the community, and I felt that we could get a better, more diverse range of services and businesses into the BNote system by concentrating on local businesses.
Right.
But obviously time banks are good as well. We had one of our directors break off from the BNote and start the Baltimore Time Bank, which is still going. I'm not sure how strongly it's expanding right now, but it has been founded, and these are the kind of experiments that we need, people getting out there and just starting local currencies, starting time banks, starting whatever type of economic groups they can to try to take the power back.
I see. Well, and you said that it's a completely volunteer-based organization.
That's right.
And so how many people are actually part of this organization, and how much effort do you have to put yourself or even an average volunteer in the organization? How much time do they have to spend, and what are their typical activities like? Sure.
Well, we've had a number of volunteers. We started with just 2 to 4 people at the beginning. We might have hit a peak of about 18 to 20 volunteers. We're back down slightly, maybe 6 to 10 volunteers on a consistent basis. It takes a bit of time every week. It certainly took a lot of time to get it off the ground, to construct it and get everybody aware of it, be out in communities and be telling people that this was going to happen, and then making it happen. It takes a fair amount of my time. I do have a day job, but this is my passion. I'm doing it in my spare time, on weekends, during breaks. It's really something that I felt was so important to have as a tool, really an economic tool here in Baltimore, that I really wanted to get it off the ground, as did all of our other directors. And it's really now probably, if it takes a collective 40 hours a week, that would be a lot. It's out there, it's doing what it does. People are going to Cambios and they're getting BNotes. But to the extent that we have time to expand the system, we're certainly going to do that. The types of things that we're doing are canvassing, as I've said, reaching out to businesses, finding out how they're doing with the BNote. Are there any problems? Do they need new signs? We've just gotten new business signage designed and printed, so we're getting that out to the businesses. Do a little bit of fundraising here and there. We do some grant applications, grant proposals. We haven't done that in a little while, but we're moving back toward seeking funding for a more permanent position, possibly an office, some way that we can expand and make this even stronger.
I see. Now, if anyone is interested to volunteer in your organization, can you please share some of your either your email or website where they can look up and learn more about what you guys do?
Sure. Yeah, they can see a lot of details on our website about the system. That's at baltimoregreencurrency.org. And they can write us at baltimoregreencurrency@gmail.com. And especially if they're in Baltimore and want to help us out, that would be great. We need as many volunteers as have time to do this. Help us with it.
All right, great. Jeff, thank you very much for your time. It was a real pleasure, and it was very interesting to know about your you and your team's effort in order to strengthen the local economy.
Yeah, thanks, sir. It's been great. Thank
you, and wish you the very best of everything. And for all our listeners, I repeat the website address. It's called baltimoregreencurrency.org. If you want to learn more about it, or if you want to write to them directly and interested in volunteering, you can write to baltimoregreencurrency@gmail.com. Thank you, Jeff, once again. And to all our listeners, have a good day. Thank you for listening.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.